Hello again, everyone. This is David Sisk, and I'm going to give you an overview in this video of the Access for LLs training, the online training, and then I'm going to walk you through the Test Administrator's Guide that will help you prepare for this training. So you're going to have to go through the online training. This is what it looks like on the home page. If you click on modules, it gives you an overview of what those modules look like. There's an introduction, the planning and logistics, which is very important for the testing coordinators, a little information about how to navigate questions you may have about the students, the school, or the district. Please note that there's a knowledge check at the end of every module. It's kind of a little mini quiz. It's not the quiz that you're going to take at the very end of the module, but it just is a good kind of check-in to see where you are with your knowledge. And you work through all of these different modules, how to administer the test. There are great videos here that will navigate you through what that looks like. Remember, the Access for LLs online test is given to grades 1 through 12. And for the majority, grades 1 through 12, the students will take all parts of this online. The exception being grades 1 through 3, who will take a written version of the writing test. So for grades 1 through 12, everything is online, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, except for grades 1-3 that will take the written version of the writing test. So this gives you an overview of those modules. This is administering the test. This is the test scoring piece. Remember, you're not scoring this assessment. This assessment is scored off-site. The district will receive the scores back sometime in late spring. They typically the scores come in late May or early June. And this gives you a little more information about how you generate those score reports and share those score reports and so on. And then at the end of all of these modules, you will take the certification quiz to make sure that you have the knowledge that you've gleaned from going through this online training to get your certificate. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through the Test Administrator Manual, what we affectionately refer to as the TAM. And I'm going to give you insight into parts of the manual that will help you as you're going through the online training. So I'm going to scroll down to the table of contents, and we're going to section 6, the Access for LLs online. Click here, and I have highlighted parts of this, and I'll take you through it briefly that will give you additional insights into what to pay attention to as you are preparing and creating the space to administer the Access for LLs online. Okay, so the first thing you need to pay attention to, you need to understand that this is a semi-adaptive assessment, which means that as the students progress through the assessment, the program makes decisions about where the child will go in the assessment. Do the questions get more difficult? Do they get easier based on students' prior responses? So it's a semi-adaptive assessment. Students are placed into one of 3 different tiers, and this is done automatically. The speaking portion of the assessment and the writing portion of the assessment, they're placed into those tiers based on their responses in the listening and the reading portions of the assessment. So that's something that you need to make note of. It may be in the quiz. And this gives you some insight into how you can group your students. This is really important for testing coordinators or anybody at the school level who is planning those testing sessions. It's important to note that all grades and tiers can test together for listening and reading in those domains. All grades and tiers can test together for listening and reading. However, the groups above reflect the available test administrator scripts. So remember that you're going to have one script for grade 1, one script for grade 2-3, one script for grades 4 through 12. So at the elementary level, you will have 3 scripts you're working with: grade 1, grade 2-3, grade 4-5. When you're combining, or if you are combining those groups, and our accountability peers can give you more insight into how to put those test groups together. But if you're combining those groups, you want to make sure that you use the lowest level script, because it's often the easiest for the students to understand. So that's what this box is giving you additional information about. If you have a child who is taking a Tier Pre-A speaking test, that needs to be done individually. In my experience, you don't find a lot of students who take the Pre-A speaking test, but if you are doing a Tier Pre-A speaking test, those test sessions need to be done individually. And again, our accountability folks can provide more information on that. And at the bottom, this gets a little bit more detail about which groups will take the handwritten version. As far as I know, we are only doing grades 1 through 3 with the handwritten version. But this is a little more detail about that option. Okay, now on to page 56. This section gives you a little more information about how you identify the speaking and the writing tier. Remember, this is done automatically. The listening and the reading assessments, domain assessments need to be given first. And based on those results, the program will generate what speaking and writing tier the students will be in. And so this gives you a little more information about how to access that data, how to use that tier data if the students are taking the handwritten option. And for us, that's only grades 1 through 3, as far as I know. Those are the only students, grades 1 through 3, taking the handwriting option for the writing test. But it's still important for you to know those speaking and writing tiers. Test timing. So these are approximations about how much time the testing sessions will take. So you're going to have to factor in different things, different logistics at your school. But this gives you an idea of how many students or how long each domain test will take for each group of students. And it gives you a little more insight into the number of students. Now down at the size, down at the bottom part of this, it says group size. And refer to North Carolina guidance on the group size. Historically, it's been 21 students instead of 15 students. That may have changed this year. However, this document says no more than 15 students. But again, I made a note down here at the bottom to refer to the North Carolina guidance on the group size. Okay, continuing on this page, again, you get a little more insight into the approximate times each one of those domains needs to be administered. Midway down the page, you also get a little more insight into how you schedule those test sessions. And the WIDA Consortia and the Access for ELLs Online, it's not required that you administer all domains within a specific time frame. Listen to our accountability department about the time frame the testing window when this testing needs to happen, but also the way you set up those groups. Remember, listening and reading need to happen first before speaking and writing. And make sure you administer one domain in a single test administration. So if you start the listening assessment on that day, finish it on that day. You can schedule more than one domain on one day. However, I would not do all 4 domains on one day. I would not do listening, speaking, then, I would not do listening, reading, and then speaking, and then writing on the same day. So this page gives you a little more insight into how to schedule those sessions and how to organize those sessions. So moving along, on to page 58. Test materials. I don't have the test materials right now when I'm making this video, but this is an inventory of what, and you will all get your own testing materials. You'll be able to inventory those. You actually have to inventory those. That's what the accountability department requires. But you'll have a student test roster. Each student will have a test ticket, and our accountability department will show the test coordinators how to navigate through the AMS to get to generate those student test tickets. The TMA code, This is part of the access management system. Again, our accountability department will go into more detail about that. You have a script, a writing test booklet for those grade levels that are taking the written part of or the handwriting option for the writing test. You have a writing response booklet for the students who are taking the writing test online, but there's still a writing response booklet. So this is an overview of what you need, the different materials you need to actually administer the Access for ELLs online. And then down at the bottom, it gets into the technology aspect of this. Since this is given, own a Chromebook using the DRC Insight app. That app should be on all the Chromebooks. If it's not, touch base with the accountability department. They can walk you through this. But that app should have been pushed out to all the Chromebooks that we have in the district right now. So that shouldn't be a problem. Make sure the headset is working. And there's a microphone check. The headset must have a microphone for the speaking part of the Access for ELLs online. So a little more insight here on these pages about the technology aspects that you need to pay attention to. Okay, in the middle of this page, it mentions accommodations. So you're really only talking about EC or 504 accommodations here. You cannot use EL-specific accommodations on the access, so just pay attention to that. When this manual is talking about accommodations, it's referring to EC or 504 accommodations. So then we get into preparing for the test. And you can click into these links if you want additional information. There are sample items here that you can take a look at. But really, preparing for this test, this computer-based test, is very similar to preparing for other computer-based assessments. So you want to identify a testing space where you can test the requisite number of students for that particular domain. Make sure you have all of your technology equipment, your headsets with microphones if you're doing the speaking assessment. Make sure all of that stuff is available and accessible to the students. And there are practice items that many of your ESL teachers will have already taken your ML students through prior to the first day of access testing. So they should be familiar at least with the idea and what the access looks like and how to navigate it. But this page gets into a little more detail about what you need to do to prepare that testing space. So obviously you're covering any posters, anything on the walls that could help unduly help the students out on the access test. Have a plan for the students who finish early. Review the test student roster. Make sure you have the test tickets for all the students who are scheduled to test with you. Follow the North Carolina guidelines on blank scratch paper. Our accountability folks will give you more detail on that. I believe North Carolina may have a little stringent interpretation of how to use blank and scratch paper, but that's irrelevant. Listen to what North Carolina is sharing with you, and our accountability department will share that and follow up with you on the appropriate use of blank and scratch paper. So then we get into administering the test. So distributing the test tickets. For younger students, you may actually have to key in the username and the password for that child before they can start that particular domain of the assessment. For older students, they may be able to key in. That's very common for those students to key in their username and their password to be able to begin a particular part of the assessment. This is what those test tickets look like. Student's name, last name, date of birth, pardon me. And then you have the script available to you, so you're following that script. You're reading the intro, you're reading the information the students need to hear before they start that particular domain. Help the students log in if you need to. There are practice items at the beginning of each of the domains. And those practice items are to help the students and to remind the students how to navigate the assessment as they go forward. And just remind the students that they cannot go back and change their responses if they have already moved on to the next question.